Welcome to the Breaking Muscle Podcast, where each week we take you inside some of the most compelling stories and physical feats in all of fitness. I am Pete Hitzeman, managing editor at BreakingMuscle.com, and your host for today's show. There are two choices to make when faced with society's problems or your own. You can sit and talk about how horrible and sad they are, or you can get about the business of doing something about them. Michael McCastle falls in the latter camp, and his 12 Labors project has allowed him to raise funds and provide services for a wide variety of philanthropic causes. He recently completed his 6th labor, in which he ran 20 miles a day for 100 consecutive days to provide support for veterans struggling with mental health issues. Mike and I dive into the gritty details of this brutal event, along with the strategies he employed to overcome the physical and mental challenges it presented. He illustrates how he used visualization to prepare himself for each mile, and how he learned to mentally stay in the mile he was in. The lessons Mike learned in this labor are applicable to all of us in our everyday challenges, and we would all do well to try and implement them in our lives, even outside of our pursuit of health and fitness. I came away from this interview inspired and motivated to make myself and my community better, and I think you will too. If you're enjoying our podcast, you can do us a huge favor by heading over to iTunes or Stitcher and leaving us a rating and a review. And as always, if you have any feedback for the show, be sure to send it along to editorial@breakingmuscle.com. Joining us this morning on the Breaking Muscle podcast is one Michael McCastle. He's been on the show before. He is of the 12 Labors Project and just finished another one. This one was 100 consecutive days of running 20 miles a day, which I'm no mathematician, but that's a whole bunch of miles. Michael, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us today.
Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. 2,000 miles of running is just like in just over 3 months. I can't even begin. I'm a runner, and I've run what I feel like is a long way. Can't even contemplate that. How did you pick running for this labor?
Well, I picked running because like all of my labors, I try to pick something that I'm not good at or something that I've struggled with in the past, because I do it to challenge me. In high school I was a sprinter, and regularly I just like working out, lifting heavy weights, bicep curls, things like that. So doing these endurance events really challenges me on a physical level, but also a spiritual level. It really cuts to my core. I really get to see what I'm made of and really get to test my mettle doing things that I've struggled with before. I've never been an endurance runner. I've done endurance events, but I wouldn't classify myself really as someone who likes to go out and enjoys running long distances. So that's why I chose running, to prove to people that you can, push your body beyond what you even think is possible or what's ever been possible for you.
And for those of you who are just listening and haven't yet gone to the 12 Labors Project website, which you should, Michael is not built like a Kenyan. Okay, Michael is built like an NFL strong safety. Big, broad shoulders, strong guy. Like, running 20 miles is not something you would look at him and go, oh, yeah, he's going to do that. And he did it for 100 consecutive days. So that part can't be overstated. You definitely picked something that was not in your wheelhouse at all, and then did it anyhow. Let's talk about the nitty-gritty details of getting all of those runs done. Like, how many pairs of shoes did you go through? How did you handle the nutrition, the time of exposure, all those things?
Right. So, as you said, I'm not really built to. When people look at me, they don't see an endurance runner. And for me, even I use imagery a lot, and imagining myself running those miles even before I started the labor was, it took a lot of practice for me. And then I finally just settled on, well, what? I'm just going to imagine me falling forward for 20 miles. I can fall. I'm clumsy. I could fall. If I was struggling, like, okay, the stride length, the stride rate. Well, what? At some point, I'm falling. I'm just falling forward, because that's really all running is controlled falling. So that's what I did with that. And as far as the shoes, I went through about 4 pairs of shoes. 2 pairs I went through pretty quickly, 200 to 300, probably about 250 miles on both of them. And then the last 2 lasted me a long time. I think the longest pair I had is a pair of Brooks GTS 17s, and they lasted me about 700-800 miles, and I was really impressed with those. And that was towards the back leg of the challenge. So those really, I think for my body size, those offered such a lot of support, especially around the ankle and forefoot. So yeah, those, and then nutritionally, I was taking in about 12,000 calories a day. I was burning anywhere from 8 to 10,000 calories a day, and I was just trying to. Really, it wasn't getting the food. It was just making the time to eat the food. I was eating so much food, trying to get in. A lot of my calories were liquid, only because they, just faster absorption into my body, and it was faster for me to just prepare. So a lot of, I was really taking in a lot of liquid nutrition during this challenge.
Were you trying to fuel while you were running too, or just water, or how are you keeping yourself going?
I was taking a supplement called Frog Fuel, which is it's a pre-digested collagen protein, but it also has carbohydrates in it. So that's really the main thing. It's just quick, fast absorbing carbohydrates that kept me fueled, and I didn't have to wait. There was no really any gaps. I wanted to make sure I didn't hit too many walls because of the lack of carbs or energy in my body. So I was, on a typical run, I would have 3 or 4 packs of the Frog Fuel. I'd have water mixed with Pedialyte, and I would also have pickle juice with me too, so to keep my sodium levels and things like that regulated. So I had a fanny pack. So that's what you're thinking. Yes, I had a fanny pack. Actually, it's a sport pack. Okay.
Sport pack. Yes. It's a manny pack, if you will. So, and you were running. I was following you on Facebook all the time, and you're posting up a video every day of various stages of the run. Mile 6 or mile 10. You'd kind of check in with your app, and you ran at all different times of day in all different climates. You were kind of on the road a little bit. It looked like during some of that. So, how did you handle just the exposure to the elements during all of that time? Like, it's rough on. There are some subtle things that happen when you're doing something that grueling, like your skin and just your eyes are open for too long, like you're just breathing too much, like your throat gets sore. What kind of other stuff did you deal with?
Sure. So, other than the severe chafing and the dry skin and the rashes, like the eyelids, the eyeballs, where my eyes were drying out pretty bad, a little bit of sunburn. But I chose that. I chose to run in various routes, climates, various terrains because, like I said, I'm not really an endurance type of run. Like, I'm not used to running really long distances. So for me, it was a mental thing where I needed new stimulus. I needed something to challenge me differently, versus, I couldn't just run 10 days straight doing the same course or something like that. I needed something to break the monotony, I guess. And for me, that came in the form of challenge. Like I planned 3 weighted runs where I would run with the 20, 30, and 40-pound rucksack on. And I did that because if I got to a place where I was comfortable with running that distance, I would have set myself up to possibly not finish a run or, to hit a wall and not be able to recover. But I think putting myself in that kind of fight or flight, keeping myself in that fight or flight stage by staging these different levels of challenge within the challenge, it gave me a short-term goal to reach every 30 days, but it also gave me a tangible obstacle that I had to overcome within the challenge.
Now, you obviously had to wear like a watch at least to make sure that you were hitting 20 miles every day. What other kinds of data did you use?
Sure. So I had two watches. I had a Samsung Frontier S3 Frontier, and I had a Garmin Forerunner as my backup. Okay. And I tracked both of those on via the app. And then my last line was just my phone. I kept my Strava going on as a fail-safe, just in case, I don't know, both watches failed.
You cannot get 18 miles into a run and have a watch fail. That would be terrible.
Exactly. So those were my main tracking systems, and I tried to stay on top of it with the social media. I use Snapchat. So I really, to communicate my running to the public, I would use Snapchat because you can timestamp. So I would show my watch, and also I would show the timestamp on the Snapchat application. So I had like a double verification, I guess, if you wanted to call it.
Sure. So doing it on social is kind of a new thing, right? There are a few new things for this labor that weren't present on some of your previous challenges, right? So multi-day event, lots and lots of days event, really, and you were very engaged while it was going on with your audience. How did that change the experience for you?
It changed it a lot. Most of my labors, as you said, they've been really. It was a really solitary experience. All my labors I do alone, but I do have like a team of people that help me, prepare and recover and train, food and et cetera, support. But for this one, I really wanted to involve the public. I really wanted people to see the amount of the effort. I didn't want to just talk about the effort. I didn't want people just to see in pictures or some news article. I wanted people to follow me on this journey because it was a journey. It's a 100-day journey, right? So I wanted people to actually kind of step into my shoes and see the pain, see the suffering, and see the actual day-to-day obstacles that I had to face. That it's not easy. People think, people see me break these records and do these endurance events, and they just see the post-mortem. They don't see what really goes into it, and they might think, oh, well, he's a fitness guy, or he trains well. Yeah, it's cool, but I think if people could see that this 240-pound man, this 30-year-old 240-pound man who is not really an endurance runner can overcome these obstacles. And yeah, it hurts. It's painful. I encountered many obstacles and barriers. I think that would just added more to the impact. And also, they would see that and say, okay, well, why the hell is this guy doing this? And then they see the cause of why I'm doing it. And they put the two together. So pain and suffering associated with a good cause for a good reason, I think people would remember that more than just reading some article, post-mortem.
I agree. It was definitely engaging to watch and sometimes hard to watch. I mean, some of your runs out there, like I'd catch your video and it's like, oh, he's having a rough one today. Like, sure. I can't remember any of the days specifically, but there were a couple of them where I was like, I'm not sure he's going to make this one. This one's getting ugly. I feel like there should have been like a team of scientists following you through this whole thing too, just to like find out what happens. Like we've never seen somebody do a thing like this before, just to like track what happens to the human organism. What was the physical toll? What did you walk or hobble away with at the end of this thing?
So I had some stress fractures. I broke a couple lower fibula, lower extremities. A couple of my metatarsals got fractured. Blisters. I had some fluid build up in my lungs. My kidneys started acting up at some point. But these are things that I've, blisters, toenails falling off, insomnia, right? So these are things that I planned for and prepared for. And I've experienced some of these things with other labors, but those are just in general, those are really the main ones that I had to deal with. So.
Yeah, the ongoing insomnia is kind of a one that you wouldn't think. It's not an obvious one. So it's just like you were so tired you couldn't sleep kind of thing?
It wasn't that I was so tired. It's just that after running so many miles for so many days, your body and your mind starts to think that you are trying to survive something. So it's, I guess, the adrenaline trying to shut down at the end of the day when my mind and body's already preparing to have to run the next day. It got used to that, having to just be running. And running is a flight, right? You have fight or flight. That's the flight response. So I was in a flight response and having to run through pain and suffering. Like that's things that you do when you're in danger, when there's a threat. So having to, some of my runs were late in the afternoon and having to try to shut down just a few hours later to try to get some sleep because I was still, I'm a full-time student. I work full-time, so it's not like my mornings I could sleep in. I had to still get up pretty, fairly early and take care of my, handle my business. So I guess it was the insomnia came from just my body confused really on, now's not the time to sleep. Like you just ran 20 miles and you're going to have to get up and run really soon because we've been doing this the last 15, 20 days or whatever. So I think that's where this, and then also the muscle spasms. I had pretty severe muscle spasms.
What did you have any strategies to kind of work with that insomnia or work with that sort of elevated state or to mitigate those?
Yeah, I cut back on my caffeine, just in general, just any type of caffeine. I noticed that it was just amplified. Like anytime I would just drink a cup, I used to drink a cup of coffee before my run, And I stopped doing that because I felt like the effects of the caffeine lasted far longer than it would be if I was just, instead of just a couple hours, it would last 5 or 6 hours, the effects. I would be awake, feel awake. And I used a lot of essential oils and a lot of, the Epsom salts and, things like that. I took a melatonin supplement to kind of help me to regulate my sleep schedule. And that's really it. Other than that, I just kind of, if I wasn't running or recovering, I would just kind of put my mind in a peaceful, relaxed state and try not to stress about too much else.
Now, how are you healed up now that you're several weeks out?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good now. I'm still tight in the hips. My hip flexors, I think, were the longest lasting effect of this run. Is my hips are just really tight right now still from running that much. My ankles, my Achilles are still a little tight, but as far as the pain, as far as my physical ability, I'm training again. I'm back in the gym. I feel like I'm pretty recovered, so I feel good.
Have you gone on a run yet?
You know what? I haven't ran yet, but I haven't planned. My next run is planned actually like maybe in 30 years or something like that.
That's fair. I'll keep
you updated.
You might be the one guy who says I'm never going to run again and actually sticks to it, and I don't think anybody would blame you.
Yeah, I mean, I run like on the treadmill, so soft surfaces, no more than a couple miles, a mile or two.
Yeah. So the point of this labor, it wasn't just to go out and thrash yourself for 100 days. You had some higher motives. So let's talk about the cause behind this one.
So I did this labor to raise awareness for the veteran suicide rate that's estimated at 20 per day right now. So that's why I ran 20 miles every day. Each mile represented a life lost to suicide. Mm-hmm. And that served two purposes. One, it drew attention to the cause, and people could relate the 20 miles to the 20 lives lost. But it helped me too, because each mile I ran was, at the end of each mile I ran was that life. Like I saw the faces while I was running. And if I stopped or quit, it's one of those things where I was running to bring awareness for the lives lost, but I was actually running for those that are currently going through a dark time, a dark space in their life. And if I could just hit that mile mark, or I could hit that 20-mile mark, then in my mind that was a life reached and a life saved. That was a hand reaching down off the cliff and pulling them back up, and I got there in time. So I was running toward that. I was like, it was a family member, it was a brother, it was a sister that I was running to actually literally save their life at the end of the cliff that was 20 miles away. And that's what really drove me and pushed me every single day to, days I didn't feel like it. And I would say about 80% of the days I did not feel like running, but I did, because I know if those people, even the ones that were lost to us, if they were standing in a room with me, they would say, what the hell are you doing? Go live your life, live with purpose. This is an opportunity for you to help a lot of people.
And you did help a lot of people. So at the end of this, you had you helped host a retreat. I saw that you have just come back from another retreat this past weekend. So let's talk about that event and what kind of services you were offering.
Right. So the other side of this labor was so one side was to raise awareness for the statistic and get funds and resources, funds to help resources that combat that epidemic. And the other half was to raise funds and awareness for a veteran retreat that myself and a team of health professionals, yoga instructors, we had some essential oil specialists, biofeedback specialists, and equine therapists. And we had this world-class facilitator for vets. He was a Vietnam combat vet through the National Alliance to End Veteran Suicide. And we all came together to create this retreat that was put on at the very end of my run. So on day, my 100-day challenge, on day 101 was this retreat. So all this effort, all the community coming together, all of our combined effort was actually going towards this retreat that we put on for vets suffering from PTSD, traumatic brain injury, chronic pain, and military sexual trauma.
That's awesome. And I think that part is crucial to understand for what you're trying to do, right? Because raising awareness to the statistic is one side, but understanding that those statistics are people and you have to help them one at a time is kind of the crucial thing. I think that there's a huge desire to help the statistical problems, right? I mean, the things that our country has seen over the past several months, with the hurricanes in Puerto Rico and Houston and Florida, now what's going on in Las Vegas, like there's a big desire to help these big statistical problems, but the way that you do it is by engaging the individual people. You've got to put a bottle of water in the hand of the person who needs it in the hurricane zone. You've got to sit down with the person who's struggling with PTSD and talk to them, or let them talk, or give them whatever engagement they need at that level. So I think it's efforts like yours are the ones that are going to make the difference. It's not just a matter of putting a badge on your social media profile. You've got to get out and do the work and get in the trenches with the individual people. Was there a worst mile every day?
A worst mile? I don't know. I at one point everything just blended together. It got bad, and then it just didn't get worse. So all the miles were kind of like the same, and really I just took each mile as it came. Yeah, I would say some miles were worse than others, but in the moment, during the run, I didn't really think like this is a bad mile. It was just kind of like, this is the mile I'm in. And I didn't look at past miles as a point of reference. Like I didn't think, well, this mile is worse than another mile or something like that. I was just like, okay, this is the mile that I'm in. How am I gonna get through this mile? So there was really no point of looking back. I can say that yeah, there were some miles, some days worse than others, but I think in the moment, I didn't drag. And I guess that's another something to take away from this labor is I didn't drag my past with me. I kind of experienced what I had to experience in the moment, in the mile, and I let it be where it was at. I didn't say, oh, well, this mile is different than that mile. If I did that, I would be dragging all this past with me. And I think that that's important to take away from in the labor, but also in life is, so many times we try to change the past. We drag the past with us when really we should create a future and live into that future, create something new. And that's what I did. Every single mile, I created a new experience. I didn't look to the past, even if it was the last mile. I didn't say, oh, this is so much better. I created what I wanted to create in this mile. I was like, okay, well, that mile was bad. Well, I'm going to create the mile that I want to run. I'm going to run my mile the way I want to run it. And I put that out there, and then I lived into it. So I guess that's the best way I could describe it.
Yeah, it's definitely a difficult thing to put into words when you're in that place of just moment to moment. Survival is probably the wrong way to put it, because that implies that you're kind of just getting by, but that moment to moment existence where you're just infinitely present and nothing else is going on. You have an article that is coming out this week. It will actually come out ahead of when this podcast airs, but you talk about the power of imagination and preparing yourself for any kind of peak performance. And we've had a lot of people write for Breaking Muscle on the power of visualization for individual tasks, right? For weightlifting specifically, it's a fairly easy thing. You know what your lifts are going to look like. You have 2 lifts to perform. Same for running. You know what your 10K or your marathon is going to look like. You can imagine that. When you have a task that is 100 days long, how did you use the power of visualization to prepare for that, knowing that you had to prepare every day?
So visualization or imagery is a very strong and very powerful tool, because our reality, everything that we experience, is all based on our view, our perspective. So we have to, anything that happens to us, we see it first. We have to see it. Our brain sees the image, and our brain processes it, and then we attach a meaning to it. So what happens to the way one person sees an outcome is different than the way another person sees the exact same outcome. The outcome doesn't change. It's the view looking at the outcome. So for me, I had to choose how I wanted to view my outcome during this run. I needed to be very detailed and specific. I needed to involve all my senses in my visualization. And I had to really visualize the pain, the suffering, each step, how the ground felt, the energy coming back from the ground back into my body. On days where I would be, that were especially hard, I had to put myself in the worst type of environment mentally, and I needed to make a choice how I wanted to view that is in terms of how I wanted to respond to that pain and respond to that the suffering in those moments. And I practiced it. I continuously, probably thousands and thousands of times, I put myself in those moments, and I visualized a positive, not necessarily a positive experience, but an experience that empowered me instead of drained me, or an experience that didn't fill me with doubt. Because if you don't visualize, your brain, like you said, your brain is just about survival. You just want to survive. So if I didn't practice and visualize those outcomes that I created and I wanted, then my brain would go to survival, and survival in those moments would be to stop running. Because your brain will always fill those gaps, right? So it'll always want to go back to what is the easiest way, or what is the way that will allow you to survive this event. And for me, in those runs, would be to just stop running. And I couldn't even allow those thoughts or allow that possibility to enter my mind. So how did I overcome that? I had to create the response I wanted. And when you envision something, the second you think of an outcome, the second that you think of the experience that you want, your brain starts to create grooves, right? Your brain starts to rewire itself. And if you don't continuously practice that, it'll go back to its old way of surviving, the way that you've always survived everything, which was either to quit, or which was either to stop, or however you dealt with it before. Your brain will go to that by default. So I needed to create I needed to rewire my brain, not necessarily rewire, but reinforce the grooves that I've already had from other labors by visualizing it. And it was sometimes I would use imagery for hours. Sometimes I would use it for a couple minutes. Sometimes it would be between classes. I became sort of obsessed with it. And going back to your question, I believe that is what allowed me to stay present and mindful in the moment, was because no matter how bad it got or how good it got, I had already been there before. It wasn't a new experience. I didn't give my body that environment to go into a deep fight or flight experience because I had already been there. I was comfortable with it. And, it always goes back to being comfortable with being uncomfortable, and that's what I always aim to do.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things that I've taken away from the various kinds of training that I've engaged in, is that you can apply these micro experiences to your greater life experience, so that you can be at 95% of your max heart rate and be working very hard and yet not be in a panic state. And I think the difference between making good decisions or having a good experience and not is being able to function mentally calm even while your body is just getting absolutely destroyed. That's the difference between winning and losing in a lot of situations. Just one more thing on the visualization piece, and we'll move on. You had contrasting needs, right? You're spending 4 or 5 hours a day on your feet on the run. And then you have to work, you have to eat, you have to sleep. You have to eat a whole bunch, and then you have to sleep. How did you balance the need to plan and visualize with the need to disconnect and downregulate?
You mean how did I disconnect the visualization of the running and then focus on the need to eat and things like that?
And do literally everything else that goes on in your day, like folding your socks and all of it. You've got to still be a balanced person enough to continue to function. So how do you turn it off?
I wouldn't, I don't think I turned it off at all. I think that being balanced, having the balance that you said, was part of the visualization. I put that having balance, I said, I want to be powerful, I want to be enduring, I want to be balanced, I want to be energized, I want to, all those things, including the balance in the rest of my life, I visualize that as well. So the context of your imagery, or the bubble that you choose to use your imagery, is really limitless. You can focus in on a singular event, or you could expand it out to the rest of your life, universe, world, however big you want to. But for me, because I was doing so much other stuff on the side or outside of the running, I needed to expand my imagery to a wider scope. So I really encompassed my entire reality for the next 100 days was put in that visualization. Again, it goes back to being mindful and being present. When I wasn't running, I wasn't running. And that was really as simple as I made it, you know. And when I was running, I was running. And then when I was doing homework, I was doing homework. When I was working with clients, I was working with clients. And I didn't allow, to the best, you know, I didn't allow. And then if I would feel pain or I have a muscle spasm, it was like, it wasn't, oh, this is a bad feeling, or, oh, this is a good feeling. It was, I'm having a muscle spasm. I let it be what it was. What you resist persists, right? So if I were to say, oh, I shouldn't be having these muscle spasms, this is hurt, this is painful, I would be making it bad, I would be resisting it, and the longer that feeling or emotion in that moment would last. But if I were to say, okay, I'm having a muscle spasm, and I just let it be that, I didn't make it good, didn't make it bad, it just passed. It's kind of like a wave, right? So those things would come in waves. Pain, the insomnia, things like those are all just waves, and it's just ebb and flow of the process. And I didn't attach too much feeling or emotion to any of it. I just took it for what it was, and I just let it be what it was. Because the second I made it good, bad, right, wrong, or whatever, would be the second that I made it real to me. And to me, the pain, it wasn't real. In my mind, it wasn't real. So, but if I made it bad, I would make it real. If I resisted it, I made it real.
Yeah, the problem is rarely the problem, right? The problem is the value that we assign to the problem, because that is what dictates what happens next. And I'm very fond of saying the only thing in life that matters is what happens next. Like the thing that just happened to you is irrelevant because it's already in the past. It's irretrievable. There's no, as much as we wish, and I wish that there was one, there's no Control Z for life. You're not going to go back to 5 minutes ago and undo the thing that just happened. So the only thing that matters is what happened next. And if you can compartmentalize and kind of decouple the assignment of your positive or negative value from the event, a muscle spasm is a great example, like then you have a decision. You can actually make a decision instead of being reactive to what just happened.
Sure.
It's a crucial concept that I think is uniquely taught by endurance sports. I think that it's difficult to learn that in other situations. What were some of the unique lessons you took out of this one, right? You've done a lot of kind of crazy and unique things. All of them are going to have their own lessons. What was the flavor of this one?
The flavor of this one was the flavor of the physical challenge was to just be present, be mindful. Don't live looking from your past, right? Don't bring the past with you. Create something new every single day, and don't live as if there is some future outcome. Because for me, if I were to just think 20 mile, or if my brain would have went to day 100 and focused on day 100, I wouldn't have been able to really live in the moment of each day and each run, and I would have been overwhelmed. It was really easy for me to think, okay, I'm on day 2, I got 98 days to go, this is gonna suck, and attach all these feelings and all these emotions. But really, if I were to do that, what would I have been really doing was taking past experiences and using those for reference. I said, okay, I got all this pain I have to endure because in the past I've dealt with all this pain, instead of creating a new experience every single moment. I can't go back a nanosecond. Like you said, I can't go back a nanosecond and change it. So if I would have attached the pain and suffering of each and every single run to a past event or past experience, then I would be stuck in living with that forever because I can't go back and change that. But what I can do is create a new experience, a new moment every single day. And that's what I did. Every single run, every single step was a new experience, a new moment, separate from future, separate from the past. It was just now. You talk about letting go of the past. Once people really realize that there's nothing to let go because it's not real, and it's not letting go of the past, it's letting it be what it is. There's a difference between letting go and letting something be. When you let go of something, you're implying that there is something to let go. The past isn't real, it's gone. You can't change that. So if I would have brought all that baggage with me from other labors, failed attempts, pain, suffering, if I would have brought all that with me to every single mile, over time that burden would have got heavier and heavier and heavier until finally I would have just had enough. But by creating something new every single moment, I was light, I was free, and I was free to choose how my next mile was going to be. I was free to choose how my next day was going to be. I was free to choose. And a lot of times we imprison ourselves, we restrict ourselves from that choice by dragging along. People think that they're oh, well, you know, I have a positive outlook. I'm in a bad relationship, right? So I'm going to go be in a new relationship that's not going to be like my last one. And they think they're not creating something new. They're changing the past. And what they end up with is just a variation of what they had. It's not something new. It's just, okay, now I'm going to be in a relationship, and they make a list of things that they don't want instead of things that they create. So what they end up with is just a slight variation, a different shape of what already was. So I think that's the biggest lesson to take from this is, you know, let your past be, live each moment as it comes, and, you know, live with purpose. And if you have a strong purpose, then there's really nothing that you cannot do or you cannot find a way to do if that purpose is driven by something that you're passionate about. I think those are the two biggest lessons from this.
Yeah, and it's important to note, this does not mean that, you know, every day you're going to wake up and, you know, sunshine, birds sing, and you're smiling and skipping through the day. You're going to suffer, and it's going to be grueling, and the sweat's going to run in your eyes, and your feet are going to hurt, and your toenails are going to fall out, and all these painful, you're going to feel the pain. Like, you don't stop feeling it. It's still there, but you process it differently. And because you're able to process it differently, you can keep going.
Sure.
It won't shut you down because you're not internalizing it as much.
Absolutely. And, you know, these concepts, like, you know, this, you know, leaving the past, letting it be what it is, the living in the moment, the don't attach, don't bring your past with you. These are all things, too, that with the National Alliance to End Veteran Suicide, the nonprofit that I'm partnered with, this is what we tell the veterans. This is what we tell to people with PTSD. Because we don't say that Operation Veteran Freedom, the workshop that we do, we're not saying, you know, you're messed up or there's something wrong with you. There's something to fix. What we're saying is there's nothing to fix. You're whole, perfect, and complete. You just have barriers. You have blind spots. There's nothing about you to really fix. And this is the message that we deliver in these workshops to people really struggling with things that they experienced in the past. They're attached to the past. We try to bring them present and mindful in the moment.
Specifically for PTSD, that's a very important change in treatment protocol, right? Because one of the things that, you know, various professionals everybody's going to come at a problem from the angle of their own expertise, right? And so for the mental health industry to come to PTSD, they want to identify, diagnose, and treat. You know, that's what you do. You find the problem, you address it, you know, chemically or therapeutically. But that hasn't been shown to be very effective with PTSD. And, you know, we're going to have to explore some different ways to reach people. And because PTSD isn't a thing, right? There is no single, you know, disease. It's not like influenza, right? There's no single identifiable, you know, spectrum of symptoms or physiological cause or outcome or any of it. It's this huge, broad array of challenges and circumstances and experiences, and it can come from a lot of different things, and it can end up being a lot of different things. So having a more holistic approach like you're describing that addresses the person where they're at and teaches them how to deal with issues that they're having, not necessarily on their own, but, you know, give them some tools that they can use internally, is very promising. And it's a much more hopeful kind of stance than I think a lot of industries have taken to date. Man, how do you change gears off of that? There's no solid segue off of that one. How many times in your runs, and I'm not asking for a quantity, I guess, but were you listening to music, or did you just zone out? Were you listening to podcasts? Like, how did the time pass? This is a large amount of time, right? It's not just about the miles and the suffering. There's like a huge chunk of hours in your life that were devoted to this thing. So how did that time go?
I didn't listen to any music, and I didn't have any type of audio other than my phone to do the Snapchat every several miles. So I used it as an opportunity but it doesn't mean that I wasn't listening to anything. We talk to ourselves so much throughout the day, And in the hustle and bustle of life, we really don't take time to really hear what we're saying to ourselves. And a lot of it, you know, if you really just take time to just hear what your brain is telling you, a lot of it is not positive things. A lot of it is a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of BS, a lot of clutter, a lot of things that your brain is telling you to survive, really. It's a lot of things to prevent you from encountering things that are a threat. And a lot of it's not really positive. So I use these runs as an opportunity to really hear the thoughts that I was saying to myself. And I would let my mind just wander. I would think about, you know, the next challenges I want to do, and then I would put that thought in the air, and then I would listen to what I was telling myself about the next challenge. Or I would think about the career path that I'm on, and then I would just let my mind wander and hear what the type of messages I was really, and not all of it was positive, not all of it was empowering, not all of it was helpful, and it was really a raw, honest critique of myself. You know, you can get all these third-party advice and opinions, but really, mindfulness gurus have been saying it for years, thousands of years, that the answer is within you. It's inside of you already, and if you just take the time to listen. And that's what I did. So I was running every single day, no music, no anything. I would pick routes that were kind of out there in the woods or through the forest. And, you know, ecotherapy is a very powerful thing, being out there with nature. It really grounds you. And, you know, it's not all about going out there and, you know, when you meditate or when you listen, it's not about finding the positive message or the enlightenment. It's about finding the negative stuff too, and the fat that you need to trim out of your life. And I found a lot of fat that was around my life that through these runs I was able to see them for what they were, and then effectively trim them, cut it out of my life. So if it wasn't things that weren't helping me or moving me forward, things that were dragging me down, weighing me down, I was able to see them and hear them in my mind through these long runs. And I think that's the beauty of endurance events, because there's a point in time in an endurance event where you actually transcend the pain. And I think it's the point where I said it doesn't get worse. It's kind of like you zone out or you get into the flow. Psychologists call it the flow. And the power, there's so much power in being in the flow mentally, because not only are you creating new grooves in your mind to better handle that same or greater scenario in the future, but you're able to choose what you want to keep and what you want out. And you're able to see it, because it only through a point where you transcend a significant amount of pain are you able to overcome that pain and choose what you want to weigh you down, or choose what you don't want to weigh you or burden you down. So I think that was the power and the beauty of being able to just be quiet. We talk to ourselves so much. I talk to me so much. If I was talking to me, would I tell myself these negative things? I don't think so. So that's not you. That's what people need to realize, is that negative talk, that's not really you. And this is what we tell our vets in Operation Veteran Freedom. You get all these sad, depressing thoughts. If that's you, would you tell yourself those things? No. You wouldn't self-sabotage yourself. That's not you. That's your brain, right? There's your brain, and then there's you. That's your brain trying to make you survive, because that negative talk has enabled you to survive your whole life up to this point. So now you want to start thinking of new things. You want to, you know, there's you, and you want to start taking control back. So that's what I did. I had a lot of negative self-talk. You know, a lot of doubt, a lot of hesitation, a lot of second guessing, a lot of fear. You know, fear is a powerful thing, and I was able to see those things for what they were, and effectively cleanse myself of those things in my life through these long, painful distances.
You had a unique experience with flow state, right? Flow state is something that's, Stephen Kotler's work has sort of brought it to the forefront again, and athletes have talked about being in the zone since there's been athletes. But it's usually associated with something very playful, very happy, very joyful. Like when I'm in a flow state on my mountain bike, you know, me and the bike and the trail are all one operating continuum, and everything just works. I don't have to think about it. I'm not feeling anything. I'm just out doing it. You know, you were in a flow state. Well, I should have you define it, really. You were in a flow state probably several times per run, every run, And you kind of come in and out of it, like you have to cross the street or something. That flow state kind of snapped because you have to not get hit by a car. But how did you play with that? How did you kind of interact with flow state, and is it easier now to access than it was before?
I think that it is easier to access now than before. Like, again, it's like a muscle that if you continually exercise it, it gets stronger and you get more control over it, right? It's kind of like riding a bike. So for me, the flow state wasn't necessarily, it was a space, it was a place in my mind where I was one with the ground and with the strides, and my body was in sync. And there was that side of it. But then there was a dark side of it, a very dark side of it. And I couldn't appreciate the positive part of the flow state if I didn't also appreciate the dark side. I couldn't have this without this. We can't comprehend what being happy is without having felt sad or know what a deep, dark, the deepest sadness is like, right? The depression. So the more that I was willing, it's not that I went to that dark place intentionally, but the more that I was willing to go to that dark place, the greater that positive flow state was able to empower me and propel me forward. The more grounded I was, the more I was one with everything else, came when I was more willing to go to a dark place, which was the negative, and really confront those demons that in the past have held me back and that have been barriers to me and that are still barriers to me. I still feel fear. I still experience self-doubt. I still experience these things. But now going back to being mindful, I see them for what they are, and I just let them be. I don't give them the power over me. And I couldn't take that power back from those things unless I was willing to go to that dark place and really confront them face to face and accept this negative dialogue that I was telling myself. A lot of times we get this negative dialogue. We go into this state where we're just really in a funk and really sad, and we say that I don't want to feel this way. I don't want this feeling. I don't want. We fight it. So when I was running, I went to that dark place, but instead of fighting it, I just accepted it for what it was. I said, thanks for your thoughts. Thanks for whatever. I thanked it, and then I just kept it moving. And then because of that, when I got back to that positive state, that in one with everything, it was that much more. I was that much more connected. I was that much more in the flow. A lot of times we're running, we're like, oh, don't think about the pain. Don't think about the pain. We try to avoid that. No, go. What I'm saying is go there, embrace it, accept it. Don't avoid it. Don't try to put your mind somewhere else away from the pain. Get closer to it. Get comfortable with it. And once you do that, then you'll be able to not only better appreciate the flow state, but it will be that much more powerful for you.
Well, and that's a lesson that's transcendent outside of even sports. There's been some scientific study on pain visualization with chronic pain sufferers and even cancer patients, where if they're taught a meditative practice where they visualize and sort of paint a picture in their mind of the site and the source of the pain, it actually measurably lessens their sensation of pain. It's a fascinating area of study that people have been saying mind over matter for a long time, but we're just now starting to study how that actually works. That the mind really does control the responses of the body on a profound level that we've never really understood before, at least from a Western scientific perspective, of course, right? Like Eastern science has been doing this for millennia. Like it's funny to me, like now the guys in the white lab coats are catching up, and all the guys sitting on top of the mountaintop guru shrines are like, well, yeah, this is what we teach. This is what we do. You had some company on some of your runs. You had some friends come out. I saw you had newscasters chasing you at one point. Who all came out to help you?
So I had a team. A lot of the people were the people that were associated with the retreat I was putting on. We were kind of like a little team. And so sometimes they would come and run a couple miles with me. No one ever ran the full 20 with me, but they would come out and run 2, 3, 4 miles with me. And then the local college had the Veteran Resource Center, so some of those folks came out and ran with me. Then I took a run all the way out to the coast, and this lovely lady, Renee. She runs a company called Heart Before the Horse. It's an equine therapy business, and she organized the giant on 4th of July. She organized the entire town to actually run with me along the coast. So the last 3 or 4 miles, I had a large group of people. They had trucks running in front of me with American flags. And they had the beach right there. They were driving alongside me, and they had horses. There was people on horseback running with the flag, and it was really epic. It looked pretty cool. They could have probably made like a poster or a T-shirt out of this thing. It's pretty awesome. So,
yeah, I remember seeing that one. That was pretty sweet.
So I had a lot of support. I had a lot of people running with me.
Yeah.
My events are always public. I always make them publicly accessible, so if people want to watch me or join me or do whatever, they can. But a lot of these events, I do try to keep a part of it that's really just solitude and just me, like Death Valley and like the rope climb. I really wanted just to be alone in the actual event itself, because it kind of puts me in the mind and in the experience of the people that I'm doing it for.
Sure.
So I do like that solitude aspect of it, but I welcome all support and things like that as well at the same time.
What was so the day after you finished, you had a retreat to host or help host. What was like day 102 like? When you woke up, there was no running, there was nothing associated. The challenge was properly over. I mean, this had to be a very different thing than your previous experiences, just because of the duration of the event. So, when you woke up and you had nothing to do but your normal life, what was that like?
Sure. So that was actually the hardest day. Was the day where I had to do nothing, because my body had it was just normal for me to wake up, to eat something, and then just go run for forever. So having to do nothing, my body and my mind, I was kind of I felt imbalanced. Running 20 miles a day, that became my new balanced state after a while. So having to do nothing, it was kind of like my appetite. I was still eating. Well, I think for like 3 weeks after the run, I was still eating like I was running 20 miles a day. It was hard for me to cut back from 12,000 calories back down to 3,000-4,000 calories.
Right.
Okay, so I was still hungry, but I wasn't putting forth the effort. So I was just feeling really full and just bloated. And the meal never ended, so I just kind of like hated myself. And also hormonally too, your body chemistry changes once you do something for that long. So I think I needed time for me hormonally to rebalance itself. I experienced a little bit of adrenal fatigue during the last leg of my run, so I was very tired. I was very fatigued, but at the same time I couldn't sleep because my body thought that I still needed to run. So it was kind of it was this weird twilight. I was in this little twilight zone, I guess, after the run. It's kind of unique experience.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I've had the tiniest flavor of that. I call it the post-race blues, right? You finish a big training cycle, you go, you crush your PR, you do whatever it was that you went to do, and then that Monday, you are the least productive human being on the planet. Like the day after the race, you are not worth anything. And I've started, now that I've been training and racing for a few years, I've started playing around it. Like I just try to clear my calendar and make sure that there's nothing like super intensive that I have to get done the day after a big event, because I know I'm just not going to be worth a damn. Like it's just, I'm okay with it. I'm just going to sit and drink coffee and scroll through Facebook, and that's going to be my day.
Sure.
Is the next labor in the works yet? Do you have an inkling yet of what's coming down the pipe for you?
Yes. I am. So right now I'm back in school. I go to university here, Concordia University, and I'm about halfway through. I'm in pre-physical therapy, exercise science pre-physical therapy, and then I follow on to PT school after that. But I made the decision this year to I'm always looking for something that challenges me, and always looking for new ways to just create new experiences, create new challenges in my life. Because once I complete, like for example, I completed this last labor, and I'm proud of all of my achievements. I mean, you see, I got all my, but once I do them, they don't mean much to me. The cause is important to me, right, but the actual achievement itself it's in the past, right? So it's not real to me anymore. Like I did that, that's great, I did it. I can't take back that I did those things, but it's just, it loses its meaning once I finish it. And for me, there's no finish line, so that creates a conflict. That creates a constant, forever void that I'm always trying to fill with a new challenge, new experience, and it'll be like that until I die. So I made the decision this year to compete in NCAA. You know, I'm 30. I'm about to be 31 years old, so I'll probably be the oldest, competitive athlete at the university. But my goal is to next year I'm gonna attempt to qualify for one of the national teams, either bobsled, rugby, or a thrower. And I would like to qualify for the next games, Olympic Games. So I'm training for that. You know, I'm planning on a successful athletic career here at the university, and I want to qualify for the games, and then I want to use the Olympic platform as exactly that, a platform to further spread the awareness of various causes that I'm really passionate about. And I want to use any winnings, any medals that I earn, and I want to donate those and auction those and use those as well as a platform, because like I said, once I accomplish the thing, I let it go, I let it be. So that's my plan. Right now I'm in the process of being certified to compete in NCAA. I got my amateur certification, so I'm just waiting on the academic side to go through. And I'm really thankful for the support that the university has given me, the opportunity that they've given me. Coach Jared Rome, he's a two-time Olympian, and he's a thrower, and he's been working with me. He's one of the head coaches at the school, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity to also challenge myself and see what else I'm capable of doing in something completely different. It's new. I'm used to doing endurance events now, so the training for bobsled or rugby or to be a thrower is a lot different. It's more power, it's more speed, and it's something that's kind of relatively new for me, so it gives me a challenge. And also it gives me an opportunity to share my experiences and mentor these younger athletes, these younger students, these 19 and 20-year-olds who I want to be able to share my experiences with them and help guide them in a positive way on that level. And then my next labor is scheduled for next year as well. I think I've done 6 labors already, and needless to say, they've took quite my body's taken quite a beating from them. And I'm starting to transition to less of a hard impact type labors, pulling a truck, flipping a tire, running for forever. And so I'm going to start transitioning a little bit. I want to get in the water. A lot of people always say, when are you going to get in the water, Mike? You've been doing all this, do a swimming, do a water. So my next labor is I will get in the water, and I plan to tie 20 boats together, and I'm going to tow 20 boats, about 1,000 pounds swimming with my hands shackled, and I'm going to tow 20 boats up the Columbia River for a mile, again for veteran suicide.
Wow. As somebody who can't swim with my hands untied, that sounds completely terrifying to me.
I always struggle with swimming. I'm like a rock in the water, right?
Yeah.
I'm the Little Mermaid when it comes. I'm always at the bottom. I'm SpongeBob out there.
You're not a pretty mermaid, dude. I'm not going to lie.
You don't think so?
That should not be your Halloween costume. I'm just putting it out there now. Trying to qualify for the Olympics, finishing degrees, and getting ready to swim up a river with boats tied to you. You're going to be busy this next year.
I'm writing a book. I'm finishing a book up, too.
Nice. What's your book?
It's called Outlaster.
Okay.
And I really bring in the science of every great achievement really comes down to your ability or your willingness to persevere, to endure. And it's an endurance-based book, and it really just follows the lessons that I've taken from my 12 labors up to this point and applies it to a view of perseverance, of just being able to outlast. Like if you could just outlast it, you can do it, you can achieve it. And I put in a lot of personal anecdotes from my life, but I also take a lot of war history, famous battles, fights where perseverance and endurance resulted in victory. And I bring in the science too. I talk a lot about the science behind habits and our patterns in our brain, and things like that. So it's a pretty comprehensive book, and I've been working on it for about 6 months now, and I'm wrapping it, getting ready to wrap it up here shortly. So hopefully by early next year it'll be out.
Nice. Very cool. What advice do you have for us normal people, right? So, I mean, not everybody's going to go out and run 20 miles a day for 100 days or climb a rope the height of Mount Everest or flip a tire or all those things. Where would you tell people to start to find that edge and to find that place of pushing themselves and elevating their mind to do it?
I would tell people, where do I that want to know where they start? I would tell them just to start. Just start. Get it out of your mind that you're gonna someone's gonna give you a step-by-step guidance on how to do whatever you're trying to do. Just start just meet your challenge where you're at. Go into your challenge where you're at and start from there, because you're never gonna be ready. You're never gonna feel 100% ready to start. You're never gonna feel 100% prepared to start. And no matter how big or small the challenges that you are getting ready to undertake, just know that what you have already is enough to start. It's enough. Like you have the tools, you have the ability. Now, I would say to do the research and be as prepared as you can. And you can go online and Google steps 1 through 10 on how to do just about anything.
Right.
But if that were all you needed to do, then everyone would be able to achieve everything they wanted to achieve. But the problem is they're not willing to just start. They always feel like they're waiting on something else, one more piece to the puzzle, one more piece to this, then I'll start, then I'll be ready. Well, my job is this, or I have kids, or they have all these excuses on why they can't start. Just go out and start. If you were to start that challenge, that whatever you're thinking about doing, whether it's running a marathon or not even a 5K, if you were to just start when you first thought about doing it, you would have already done it already. You would have already finished the challenge. So my advice would be, you don't have to go out and try to set a world record. You don't have to go out and attempt to kill yourself running 2,000 miles. But my advice to that person would be, listen to yourself. When you think of the challenge, listen to the immediate dialogue that you tell yourself. Put the challenge in your head, and I promise you, as soon as you think 5K, you'll start talking to yourself. And I want you to really be cognizant of what you're telling yourself, the feelings, the emotions that come into your mind once you think of that, whatever it is that you want to do. And I don't want you to make those feelings bad. I don't want you to make them good. I want you to just let them be and stay present and just start. Keep moving forward. Forward momentum is so important. There's another article I did on momentum, is don't allow those negative thoughts to stifle you, and don't let the fear of the challenge to stifle you, and don't attach feelings or emotions to it. A lot of time, anytime you do something new or you do a new challenge, you're going to have a sense of fear because it's something new. And new things to your brain is a threat. New things to your brain is a threat. Your brain doesn't like change. It doesn't like new. So even if something that you want to accomplish is great and positive and powerful, it's still something new. So your brain will go to work to sabotage you. Don't attach feelings and emotions to those things. Just take them for what they are. Thanks for sharing. And keep moving forward. And don't be afraid to start.
Yeah, I think there's a crucial thing that we're touching on here, is that people misunderstand the beginning and the end, right? So if you're taking on a task, this is a discussion I had with one of my athletes over the weekend. When you decided to do this thing, you had no idea what it was going to take to get there. And now that you're almost to the thing, you're worried about actually doing it. But what you don't realize is that what happened between the beginning and the end already took care of the end. You already learned all the things, your body made the adaptations, you have already earned it, you're just going to the race to collect the medal. You've already done the work. Like, your performance at this point is pretty well guaranteed, assuming the weather isn't terrible or something, acts of God notwithstanding, this is already a finished thing. You've already done it. And that's what, it's very easy for us as coaches and trainers and writers to sort of wax rhapsodical about the journey and the process, and it's really boring for people to read. But that is actually where it happens. That is the magic, is in the middle. It's not, it's not really thinking about it before you start, and it's not really after you've gotten there. It's in between. It's the day after day, the grind, the getting up, the putting in the work, the process, the learning that happens in the middle is where all of the magic happens. Michael, this has been a great talk, as always. I look forward to our conversations all the time, and I can't wait to see all of the cool and amazing things you're going to do next. We'll be tracking you. We'll have to start our hashtag Mike McCastle 2020 for the Tokyo Olympic Games. Where can people find you online?
You can find me. My handle on Instagram and Twitter is @MikeMcCastle, and you can find me on Facebook, Michael McCastle, and my website's www.12laborsproject.com.
Outstanding. We will talk again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.